We
Alexa,
have winter storm warnings up for parts of southeast and south central Pennsylvania, down into northern Delaware, Maryland, and northern Virginia, even a small portion of West Virginia. Washington's in a winter weather advisory, Washington, D.C., but Baltimore is in a winter storm warning, and so is Philadelphia. And we have winter weather advisories up for much of New Jersey and New York City and Long Island and southern Westchester County. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight, and that's why we're here for this special Friday night edition of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. If you use the coupon code WINTER2324, Mr. Rayo, what will we present them with?
we'll present them with 10%, not 9 or 11 or 12 or 5, 10% off anything that you purchase at Tempest.
So, two snow, two snow events in 1 week. That hasn't happened since 2021. So there's that. And I had my early call last night, Joe, and I didn't really change anything today. I just, pretty much left things the same. I know there's some other forecasts that are higher than me, but I'm comfortable with what I've got.
Okay, well, I drew a snow map, much to the chagrin of all of my fans who are still badgering me over the one I drew earlier this week,
All
but I
right.
did.
Well, that's past.
Yes.
That's in the past now, so we can go ahead and go into the future. So if you would like to share your map, by all means, please do. And while you're getting it ready, welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight to this Friday night Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're happy to see you here. And for those of you not on the chat board and you're lurking in the background, we welcome you too with big hugs and open arms. But make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn your notifications on. Normally, we're on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and we're off Friday and Saturday. But this week we changed it around a bit, so this way that we're here tonight, Friday night, and we will be off this coming Sunday. So just mark that down. And if you like the show, hit the like button because we like it when you hit the like button. And if you do and get to 100, Joe will tinkle the bells.
Well, I'll do something to the bell. I won't tinkle.
Okay, well that's good. That's good to know.
Maybe I'll jingle the bell, but
You
tinkling
can
is.
You can jingle them, tinkle them, whatever you
I
want to
don't.
do, as long
I
as
don't.
you don't tinkle on the bell.
I don't tinkle. I don't tinkle in public, actually. But anyway. Well, what do we have here? We have my snow map. Can you see that, Joe? Or
I do, and I see it goes down just to about Route 78 in New Jersey, but that's fine. Go ahead.
hold on.
Oh, you
There.
went further south.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
fine. Now, if we
Uh,
get you to go down to the whole state, that'll be even better.
well,
But that'll be for next time.
one of these fine years.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Well,
anyway, you can see that I pretty much for much of the lower Hudson Valley am going for 1 to 2 inches. You have to go, I think, north of into northern Dutchess County to get a coating to an inch, and further north you probably will get nothing. Meanwhile, south of Interstate 287, down through New York City, believe it or not, and across much of Long Island, 2 to 4 inches. And you're right, Joe. South of 78, I'm actually going as high as 4 to 6 inches for this event, which is really going to be compacted over the span of tonight, after midnight, or by or after midnight, to about, I don't know, petering out after, I guess, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, although there may be some lingering flurries and snow showers around till about noontime tomorrow. Then tomorrow afternoon, the sun will start coming out, but it will leave in its wake again anywhere from, for the Hudson Valley, 1 to 4 inches, and further south, maybe as high as a half a foot.
all right. Well, that's your forecast, and This time around, I'm actually a little bit lower than you by a lot, but a little bit. And so what I did was this my early call map. I did not change a thing at all. I left it alone. I have an inch to 2 inches for the northwesternmost parts of New Jersey, the 2 inch line uh, on the north shore of Long Island to, let's say Rye, Mamaroneck, uh, westward, crossing North Jersey north of Route 80. So New York City is in the 2 to 3 inch zone. You have 2 to 4. I've got 2 to 3. 2 to 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches for those counties between Route 80 down to, well, just north of Route 195. And that's where I drew a 3 inch line that goes all the way back into southeastern Pennsylvania. I drew another 3 inch line in southern New Jersey that goes back to Washington to Baltimore and just north and west of Washington, D.C., and put 3 to 4. Now, I will concede that there might be some locally higher amounts in this zone, but I just did not feel comfortable to go with, say, a 4 to 6 or a 4 to 8 because the um,
Well,
I don't know. Given that this thing is going to last like 6 or 7 hours, and I'm not concerned about temperatures because they're all, I was looking at some of the soundings, Joe. As soon as it starts snowing, it drops down into the upper 20s. So that's not an issue. Um,
well
there's
for
a
the
lit.
for the places that get somewhat higher accumulate. Are you talking like, for example, the high elevations of Ocean County?
Right, exactly. The sand dune. No, there might be pockets, these small systems like this, oftentimes you get these, you get weird mesoscale stuff that happens. So, there might be a few pockets, and then you will throw in maybe some elevated snow ratios of 12 to 1 or maybe even 13 to 1. And yeah, there might be somebody that gets 5. Maybe there might be, some patchy areas that get 6, but I just didn't feel like putting that on the map. I just figured I'd say it verbally and just kind of broad brush this coating to an inch well to the north. I have you at a trace. I probably, maybe that part of it might be, excuse me, a little bit too low. But
I think
uh,
we'll get. I think my house will get at least 1 and possibly even 2 inches. In fact, I'm a little concerned that if things perform or overperform, we might even get as high as 3. And this is why I still haven't put away the snowblower. I normally put it in the corner of the garage, and in this situation, I said, I'm going to leave it right where it is. This way, I'll have easy access to it, just in case. I normally don't use the blower unless there's more than 3 inches. And um, if that be the case, so be it. But I'm hoping I'm in your corner, Joe. I'm hoping I get like a dusting. Then I don't have to worry too much.
yeah, I mean, I have the 1 inch line just south of you. I mean, it's like very tight. Then you go from nothing to an inch, and 1 to 2 inches just south of you. So, again, I went a little under, and and for those of you who already think I'm wrong, that's fine. But we'll find out tomorrow if I'm too high or too low. And Joe will find out tomorrow if he's too low or too high. But as far as uh, the watches and warnings, we have winter storm warnings for the southwestern counties of New Jersey, for southeastern and much of the southern half of Pennsylvania, including south central and southwestern Pennsylvania. Just about all of Maryland is under a winter storm warning, except for maybe the far eastern counties, and also northern Delaware in a winter storm warning, northern Virginia and northeastern West Virginia in a winter storm warning, and you have advisories all surrounding all of that. So this will play out, and then we'll take it from there. And you're right. I think there's going to probably be some lingering snow showers uh, into the early afternoon over Long Island and parts of southern Connecticut, because we have to wait now for the upper trough to go by. And then once that happens, we will see improving weather conditions. Sunday morning is going to be pretty cold. I'm thinking they'll probably be mid to upper teens in inland places and low to mid 20s coast and warmer urban locations. So whatever winds up melting tomorrow, and it may not be much because I don't know how temperatures I may not go very far tomorrow, is going to freeze tomorrow night into Sunday morning.
Yeah, we're looking at temperatures, and Sunday we may have, in addition to the cold temperatures, we may actually have some gusty winds as well. So not as gusty as they were this morning. My goodness, I mean they literally like woke me up, Joe, around 4 or 5 in the morning. I don't have an exact figure in front of me as to how much the winds were gusting at my house, but I can assure you it sounded like 40-mile-per-hour gusts at times.
Yeah, a few people. I had some people post on my Facebook page about how the winds were howling last night. Here's the Weather Service's snow forecast map. So most of the areas that you see with the ones are actually less than an inch. From when I looked at the actual uh, forecast maps that they put out at the Weather Service station, the Weather Service from Boston and from Albany, they're mostly less than an inch. Then you start getting into twos in Southwest Connecticut. The Weather Service has thrown threes up on for Long Island, from Eastern Long Island. There's a four near Kennedy Airport. There's some of the models are showing a heavy snow band trying to set up just touching the south shore of Long Island and out in the ocean, and then going back westward into Monmouth County and maybe even into northern Ocean County. So if that verifies, that could be one of those areas that winds up uh, getting higher than everybody around it. 3 inch amounts in northern New Jersey, says the Weather Service, four across central and south Jersey, five for Philadelphia, four for Trenton, five for Philadelphia, five for Baltimore, four for Washington. North and west of DC, they've got sixes, 5 to 6 around Reading, 4 inch amounts around Allentown, three around Scranton. And then you go further west into central PA, State College, five, Altoona, six. And you've got a band of 6 to 8 inch snows from Altoona southwestward into northwestern Virginia and into northeastern West Virginia. So, and there's actually even snow that extends all the way down into the mountains of North Carolina, although that'll probably be just enough to put a teensy weensy little coating of snow on the
Itsy
ground.
weetsy or nitsy bitsy?
I'm thinking teensy weensy as opposed to itsy bitsy.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, We got a couple of bunch of super chat hits already, so we can let me see who we got here on the board. Starting off with David Schwartz. Thank you, sir, for hitting the tip jar. He says the relative humidity right now is at about 36%. The dew points are low. Will that keep totals down with evaporation as it falls? I don't think so. Did you happen to see how much the Foose gave LaGuardia this afternoon? I didn't look.
Approximately 4/10 of an inch.
Really? That much?
Yeah.
Wow. What did it give? Well, I could pull it up on the side by side monitor. Let me just see what it gave Philadelphia. I don't think so, Dave. Dave, I really don't. Yeah, 4/10, and it gave Philly 3500s. Wait a minute, hold on. 55, 30, yeah, 34 and one, so 35. So yeah, well, right there, that's 3.5 inches. If it's 10 to 1, it's more like 4.5. It's if it's 12 to 1. Um, well, let's see if the 4/10 works out. There's been a slight nudging northward today with this, which may or may not mean anything. Right?
Not to
Uh,
be not surprising. We said, or I said yesterday that I would not be surprised if we saw a bit of a nudge to the north, and that's another reason why I'm going for a little bit more than you, Joe, or some of my contemporaries, talking about maybe a coating or maybe an inch. I honestly believe I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning, look outside the bedroom window, and I'll tell Renata, and she'll look out the window, and she'll probably say her favorite line when she doesn't like to see a lot of snow: "Oh, poo."
yeah, nice, nice. I'm just looking at the latest HRRR has really backed off from the 18Z with the snow amounts, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything because we know how horrible this model can be. Hence, the HRRR stands for horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, they've got a heavier snow band of 2 to 3 inches, and where you would think that maybe has the best chance of getting heavy snows now, 1.2 for Tom's River, an inch and a half for Trenton, and 1.6 for Philadelphia.
Oh, that
No,
sounds low.
yeah, I mean, they actually have more snow in Middletown, 1.7, than they do for Trenton and Philadelphia. Now, the 18Z, which is the one that goes out to 48 hours, this one had, again, it's got these weird holes in it. 1.9 at Philadelphia, 2 in Tom's River, but 3.1 at Trenton, 5 at Long Branch. Okay. And 3.3 in New York City, 3.8 for Brentwood. And you see this area offshore. This is what I'm talking about here with regards to, this right out here. This is part of this band, and it gets into on this run. It kind of fingered into Long Branch. I tend to think that if there's going to be a heavier snow band, it's going to be some more like this, uh, cutting across New Jersey, south of 78, and south of Route 195, and then just pushing into eastern Pennsylvania. I don't know. I just think the HRRR is somewhere in La La Land. And if you want to look at the GFS, because I think when you're right before an event, I don't think it does any harm to look at snow maps. But the GFS actually gave, um, actually went up for Long Island, 3.4, 2.3 for New York City, 2 inches for Middletown, 3.5 for Bridgeport. This kind of surprised me for coastal Connecticut. 5.1 for Long Branch, 5.3 for Trenton. So that's whoops, that was not. I didn't want to do that. But you see that area of the heavier snow that sort of fingers in from off the ocean. And I didn't look at the 18Z European, so we might as well look at that and see what that has. And they doesn't give anybody more, just too much, 2.5 inches. That's about it for New Jersey, for Long Island, to about you, a sort of a uniform broad brush 2.5.
Yep, we'll
I,
see.
I stand by my numbers. I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. Yeah, but the problem, the difference is, Joe, you may be comfortable, but you don't have to go out and shovel if there's more than an inch.
No, that's true. The 21Z surface map has the surface low just northwest of Nashville, and you've got higher pressures that are up back in the Dakotas, kind of pushing eastward. The air ahead of this not all that cold, but as David pointed out, the dew points are really really low. So I think once it starts snowing, you're going to see temperatures drop into the into near 30, and maybe even if it snows hard enough, if somebody gets into a solid moderate snow for a couple of hours, I think you can see some places drop down to 29 or 28.
I would agree. And we were just talking a few moments ago. Maybe a snow band or snow banding, even in a light situation like this, you could have one, and that could very quickly bump, at least locally, bump the numbers upward. So it'll be interesting to see. And you're right. It's so long since we've had two significant. Let's term significant. An inch or more in any one sitting. Two significant snowfalls in a week. It has been a while, a couple of years, and we'll see what happens late tonight. You'll go to bed tonight and nothing's on the ground. You'll wake up tomorrow morning. Again, maybe anywhere from a coating to, depending upon where you are, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 inches.
This is another example of a situation where this year we've got this really active subtropical jet from the Pacific with all this moisture coming out of the Pacific into the Gulf of Mexico and across the deep south. However, the northern stream system, unlike what we saw on Tuesday, where the southern system, pretty much was the whole deal, the northern system is separate from this. They're not interacting at all. So none of this heavier moisture that's to the south is getting involved. And in fact, when you look on the radar, look at the gap. Here's all that. You've got rain down along the Gulf Coast to southern Georgia and off the Georgia coast, and some that goes aloft into South Carolina. Then you have this big gap in between where there's nothing going on until you get up into central Tennessee, where we've got some heavier downpours. Might even be a thunderstorm or two there in the mix, and also back in northwest Mississippi. and on into eastern Kentucky. Yeah, the radar's not that unimpressive. Let's put it that way. That's probably the word I'd use here. It's robust enough, especially with some of these heavier cells that are showing here. So maybe that'll give the precip amounts a bit of a boost when this area comes eastward. They already got a little line of darker greens coming into southwest PA, and the echoes aloft are just about
Some
to I-81.
some of the people on the chat board are saying, Joe, that your maps
My
are not coming up. The radar, I guess.
oh
That,
oh, I'm sorry, my fault, my fault. Um, oh, because I'm using two monitors tonight, so I'm sorry, my fault. But let me just go back real quick to the satellite. But here's the subtropical jet, and then you got the separate northern jet, and then there's just this gap in the middle where there's nothing going on, and you see it on the radar. There's rain all along the Gulf Coast. There's nothing in between that and the area that's moving across the lower Ohio Valley and into Pennsylvania.
so there it is. And I expect, excuse me, I expect in the lower Hudson Valley, aside from maybe a renegade snow shower between now and midnight, that I think the main area of steady light snow will begin moving in by or soon after midnight, and then will be with us through the overnight, the remainder of the overnight, and again on into the early part of the day on Saturday, and we'll see how it all pans out as far as accumulations.
The other super chat hits tonight to acknowledge Ken Musillo. Thank you, Kenny. Johnny Quest hits super chat. Kid Joe asking, I'll give this one to you, Rayo. Up in northwestern Virginia, any orographic effect with the snow there? I just don't think the wind will be northeast long enough to have any big impacts there. Might have some impact, but I don't think it'll have a big impact.
I wouldn't. If there is any impact due to orographic lifting, I would say it's going to be somewhat negligible. So not really
Eh,
worth trying to, you know, try to input that into the overall equation for the forecast.
Nav Weather One, Nav WX1. Thank you for hitting the tip jar. That's a new name. I think you're new to the chat board and new to the show. Welcome. Jason Kaplan, thank you for hitting super chat. Great show, guys. Hoping Monmouth County does well. And I guess this might be a good time to mention what I told you off air that there's a good chance, folks, next Wednesday that we will have Alan Casper on the air here as a guest. So keep your fingers crossed. I got to set up his Zoom for him, so
The
hopefully I
sad
can.
the sad part about it is not for all, but I think for a majority of the people on the chat board, Joe, the name Alan Casper, while it's a familiar name, we've often mentioned it. A lot of people on this chat board, uh, unfortunately, never had a chance to watch Alan in action, either on
You mean the
CBS
youngins?
or Fox 5. And,
But they
you know,
also heard him for years on 101.5
on
radio in New Jersey.
101.5, yeah, yeah. So he's really sort of a living legend in terms of weather. I know a lot of you, think of names like Frank Field and Tex Antoine and Bob Harris, but the Alan was the real deal. Alan Alan was the only guy I knew, and I don't know if you remember this, Joe, but there was one big potential snowstorm looming on a horizon when he was at Channel Two, and in those days, the LFM, the state of the art model guidance back in the day, back in the 70s, was coming out at about 10 or 10 after 11 or quarter after 11. And when Alan got wind of it and looked at it, there was no time really to change any of his graphics. So he literally one night took the LFM, held it up to the camera, and made the comment. And now, as the LFM is making its New York television debut, he explained merely by holding the map up to the camera what
Right.
exactly all those squiggles and lines meant. I mean, the average person, didn't know what the heck they were looking at, but Alan was able to put it into words like, if this verifies, it's going to be. And what was it that he used because it was a potential big storm? Get out the preserves, Mama. or it's going to be it'll be it's going to be bad news in River City or something like that. Um,
Well,
anyway, that
he's
was the kind of stuff that he titillated us students of meteorology back in the day by doing stuff like that on TV.
yes, oh, definitely, definitely. Well, he's going to hopefully be a guest here on Wednesday.
Yep.
And all right, so Brandon Doherty, you just hit you hit the tip jar. Thank you. And all right, I will show everybody Brandon's map because Brandon has got his his Facebook page, which is Delaware Weather Guy. So he's going 3 inches for. Let me see. Let me get to see the map here. So he's got 3 inches in the blue area for Central and South Jersey, and in the purple, he's got 5 inches plus for Southwest Jersey, back through Southeast PA, including Philadelphia, and going back toward Lancaster and York, and further west toward Chambersburg, down to Baltimore, just northeast of Washington. Washington's in that 3 to 5 zone, as is the rest of the Delmarva Peninsula. So that is Brandon Doherty's forecast for all of this. WPC on there. I, I, uh, I went to the 5 day map just so that we could have a clean map without any the next weather system for late next week on this is part of the equation. So they've got 1/4 of an inch of liquid up to about Long Island, the half a little line of 1/2 an inch in southern Delaware, and 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch in the mountains of West Virginia, northwestern Virginia, southeastern Kentucky. Then it goes to 1/4 of an inch further south than there, and of course most of that in Tennessee is rain. And then of course you've got rains for Florida over the next 5 days of up to a few inches. Not the nicest weather pattern setting up for Florida over the weekend, over the holiday weekend. And in the West, we continue to see pretty much from Los Angeles all the way up the coast into southern Oregon, a band of several to many inches of rain. And in fact, we've got flood watches up again for much of California along the coast, and then for areas inland and central California, and a big area of winter storm warnings up for the Sierra Nevadas. WPC on their snow forecast. Okay, so you know me, I like the 50% line for at least two. And this is how where they have it uh, coming out over just about to eastern Long Island, but not all the way out. Comes in down in southernmost New Jersey, cuts Delaware in half, south of Washington, D.C., Baltimore. So this is, off of this, if you use the 50% line, that's where I would put the 2 inch line using 50%. And of course, in the pink and the or salmon color, and then the reds, we're talking 80 to 100% probability for at least two. And for the probability of at least four, and this was the updated forecast that came out at uh, 3:43 this afternoon. For at least four, they've got this area of 50% or higher in central New Jersey for at least four. And then the amounts go up as you go west toward Trenton, 60%, between 60 and 70 in Philadelphia, and then 70% or higher for much of south central Pennsylvania, westward into southwest PA, and then down into the mountains of West Virginia. So WPC is kind of matched up with what everybody else has. And that
120.
was that was a wimpy ring.
A wimpy ring.
Yeah, that was a little
There you go.
better.
I'll
Better.
pay Tuesday for a wimpy ring today.
Correct. All right, so let's just run, all of the guidance is really about the same. So it's just we're kind of at a place here where you're looking at the models is not really going to tell you too much. It's just a matter of following it along. The only thing I did notice, Joe, on the 18Z run, that the GFS low was a little bit further northwest, and some of the darker shadings of blue, a little bit further to the north. So maybe that will help the cause. for accumulations. But again, fast mover, leftover upper trough in the afternoon with some snow showers into the early afternoon, and then it gets better. Weather conditions improve. All that southern moisture feeding rain across Florida Saturday and Sunday. So if you're going to Florida for the holiday weekend, you're not going to have fun tomorrow or Sunday. And in fact, you'll have to wait till Monday afternoon. There's a low that's going to form off the Florida East Coast, so they may actually even get some wind there along the east coast of Florida. It's probably not until Tuesday that you'll have better weather. Meanwhile, that our low goes out. We're cold into Sunday morning. We'll come back on Sunday in the 30s, and then I think we'll be in the 40s on Monday. And looking ahead to next week, a lot of action coming into the western part of the United States, two waves of rain and heavy snow. But in the east, going in through Wednesday, no issues at all. Now, Thursday, some kind of low comes out of Oklahoma and runs eastward and then eventually turns northeastward. There's not a whole lot of cold air with this. But did you look at the 12Z run today?
Yes, I did.
Did you look at the upper air in the 12Z run?
I did. The one outlier, and it is an outlier compared to, let's say, the GFS and even the Canadian model, is the European, which kind of takes this upper level trough and tries to close it off along the mid Atlantic coast for next Friday, and is brewing a big coastal storm. And while the other models don't exactly show that, they just show a band or a swath of precipitation on Friday that moves quickly offshore.
Right,
But the
but then the GFS had this animal shortwave dropping down into from Lake Winnipeg. This cutoff low that digs like an animal down into the western lakes and then finds its way off the Jersey coast by the time we get to next Sunday. It took this first system for late Thursday, Friday, and just moved it along. But then it's got this big diving, you know, bomb that comes down in the upper air. I don't quite know what to make of it. And we were talking about this yesterday that something like this might happen. So I was kind of shocked to actually see it there. That's impressive. Now, of course, it's gone on the next run, so there's that. And the European, you're right. The European's got a fairly sharp trough at on the 12Z run. It's got a fairly sharp trough that digs down a little bit differently than the GFS does, and it's got a sharpening trough in the eastern part of the United States over the weekend. And yeah, it tries to bring something up offshore, a deepening low that goes from at a 982 low at the Raleigh Durham and then it's a 962 low in the Gulf of Maine, and it brought snow up the coast. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not sold on any of this because there's just too much going on here.
Yeah, and as I said yesterday the European had a significant coastal system for next Friday, but it was all offshore. And I said, well, let's see if they play the usual game and try to move it further to the west. Well, it did. In big time, it moved it to the west, so much so that it just encompasses much of the Northeast for later Friday and Friday night of next week, with precipitation, which it looks like some of it may be rain, but also a good deal of it, especially inland, could be snow. That's also probably why the Climate Prediction Center has put out a map that shows the possibility, slight as it may be, for heavy snow encompassing much of the Northeast for next Friday and Saturday. But again, we're a week away. Things are going to change, so we'll see how all this, you know, ends up.
Yeah, I had the upper air of the European while you were talking to show that monstrous trough. GFS just has it like a couple of days, same idea a couple of days later, and then here's that low 983. You don't often see a 983 low on the Virginia North Carolina state line that moves north northeast. It actually moves off the Delaware coast like the Tuesday storm and then goes out south of Long Island. It's a 968 low. and that's all snow on the backside. And then it's a 961 at Cape Cod next Friday night before it goes on its merry way up into eastern Canada. Um, Interesting fiction at this point, but there's the trough is in the east, so at least that allows for the possibility that maybe something like this happens. On the other hand, it's already on the map out in the long range, so it's going to be different when we look at this over the weekend.
True, true. I got a couple of questions on the chat board which I try to answer here. Somebody was asking about Bob Harris. I had mentioned that name a little while ago, and somebody said, "Is he still alive?" Yes, he most definitely still is alive. He's living down in Palm Beach, Florida, and he is, of course, retired. He's in his early 80s now. And what else? There was somebody else who asked a question, and I lost it, unfortunately. But anyway, so that's what's going on with the former Dr. Bob, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, we kind of covered everything. Is there anything else we need to talk about tonight? It's a Friday night. I feel a little bit off. I don't know about you, but I feel a little bit off tonight because we don't normally are not on a Friday.
Well, Bob Paxton kicked in on Super Chat tonight. Thank you, Bob. And he's saying, so you're saying that this event coming up tonight, early tomorrow, won't be a 78 event? No, it will not. It will not.
Rich Rodmansky requests some FGen. Can you FGen? I know
Uh,
this is a family show, but if you could FGen, that would be great.
all right, I can do that. Oh, yes. Uh, One other thing here. Nav Weather 1 um, says, thank you very much for identifying him on the chat board. And he was a member at one time of the Fleet Numerical Meteorology and Oceanography Center. So he has some pretty good knowledge of weather, and that particular organization is an Echelon 4 component of the Naval Meteorology and Oceanography Command, which provides worldwide meteorological and oceanographic data and analysis for the United States Navy and strategic allies of the United States. Wow. And
Impressive.
he has come to Joe and Joe now to be a part of our show. Thank you so much, Nav Weather One. All right, so what are we looking for, Joe? We're looking for FGen.
Yeah, do a little FGen, 850 FGen.
Normally, when I do FGen, I usually do the 700. But I can
Well,
do
do
8.
700 and then do 850.
I can do that too. Yes. Let me just get everything set up here. Zoom, share screen, and let's. This is right now. This is 7 p.m. on Friday night, and if we move things along here, and why won't things move along? Let's try this out again. Ugh. I hate when technology fails, and it's failing on me right now. Okay, here we go. So this is from the 18Z GFS run, and this is as of 1 a.m. tomorrow morning, 1 a.m. Saturday morning, and you can see that a good part of central and especially southern New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania, down across most of Maryland has a goodly amount of FGen, which seems to suggest that if there's any kind of snow, the most intense will be in that zone south of New York City.
However, I will just point out, by the way, I will just
Yeah.
point out that on Tuesday, all the FGen, and it was very unimpressive the night before, was to the south, and yet all the heavy snow wound up falling to the north. So,
Yes.
so there's that. But go on. I'm sorry, just had to throw
So
that in.
7 a.m., we have a bit of FGen that's touching the lower Hudson Valley, New York, and Long Island, but the lion's share, the heaviest stuff, is to the south and east of Long Island. So you might say we're just going to get a glancing blow from the FGen. And when we get to 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, There's a little FGen that's still touching extreme eastern Long Island, the Twin Forks area, but now it is interacting with part of Rhode Island, southeastern Massachusetts, Cape Cod, and the islands. And then it just flows on and out and away by 7 o'clock tomorrow night. So you could see that basically it's going to be skimming the immediate tri state area and southern New England during the late night hours tonight into the first part of tomorrow, and then quickly moving on out. So that's the 700. Let's go to the 850 FGen. See if that usually that's more at the lower levels, as 4,000 or 5,000 feet. So here we are as of 1 a.m. on Saturday morning, and it looks like, Joe, while the 850, as predicted, is more concentrated, it also shows that the 850 FGen stays pretty well offshore and to the south. It does briefly touch portions of central New Jersey by tomorrow morning around daybreak, and maybe South Jersey later tonight, but most of it passes off to our south and doesn't touch us. So again, we're going to be skimmed by the FGen either at 700 or 850, the most intense part of the storm or the most intense snows, either just over or off to the south of our area. And well, like I said, it looks like this is going to be, for the most part, a glancing blow. It does not look like a major snowfall. At least that's how it looks right now. Maybe we'll get, up where I am, more than just a coating, maybe an inch or two. Further south, New York, 3-4 inches. That's practically double what we've seen so far for the entire year, snow wise. And this snow coming up, Joe, may actually put New York City in double figures. Believe
Well,
it or not.
they need what, 4 point, what are they at, 5.2?
Yeah. So if you get
They're,
four,
I'm sorry, they're at 5.2 right now.
I think so. That's
All right, so that'll be 4.8. Then they need to get to 10.
Yeah. Well, if you don't get the 10, we're going to be awfully close. We still got a goodly amount now. It would be crazy if we went through the rest of the winter after tomorrow without seeing a single flake in New York. But you never know.
No, there's still, there's time for a couple of more events. I think we're at the halfway point of February, and I always like to use March 15th. That's like my magic day. Um, so this time, as long as the pattern doesn't turn all of a sudden turn really unfavorable as we get into the beginning of March, it looks like at least for the next 10 days to 2 weeks, we'll still have some chances.
Oh yeah, yeah, no question. And of course, we still have to see what happens next week on Friday or over the weekend coming up. And believe it or not, next Friday will be the 1st of March. So
Um,
we will already have.
The Friday after that. Today's the 16th. The next Friday's the
That's right.
23rd.
Yeah. Yes, you're right.
That's the Friday after that.
Looking at the calendar the wrong way here.
My God, the last 6 months have just flown by. All of a sudden now.
I'm looking at my doggy calendar. Uh, they my daughter got me this for Christmas. The dog that you see on the left is Mr. Sweeney, and the dog on the right is my beloved Yorkie
Comment.
Comet, which who passed away several years ago. But so now I'm always looking at the two doggies when I'm looking at the calendar.
That's that's nice. I have my old Springer Cody. He's got a monument on the wall here in the bedroom, so I always see him. I got a bunch of pictures of him there. And JJ, of course, is on the floor, doing what he always does when the show is on, sleeps,
Yeah. And
sleeps.
one other thing I like to point out on the chat board, we have somebody new I've not seen before, uh, and I I'm looking for her full name. What caught my eye was the fact that her surname apparently is after named after one of my favorite New York Mets, Swoboda. Believe it or not, I'm wondering whether or not she's any distant relative of Ron Swoboda.
I
So
worked with Ron Swoboda when I worked in New Orleans.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was actually quite amazing.
I had
to be able to be sitting on an anchor desk side by side with Ron Swoboda.
I had the good fortune of meeting him a couple of times when he was at Channel 2. And I got to tell you one thing. I mean, you cannot gauge how big Ron Swoboda was. I mean, when he when I was
Yeah,
like
he was
standing
big.
next to him, I said, "Holy mackerel!"
Yeah, very much, very imposing. And
Yes,
I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a very good way.
yes,
He was a you know really stocky, muscular type of guy.
exactly.
Very impressive. So,
Yes,
okay. I saw that Christinapedia said that my audio was running low before, maybe because I pulled my mouth away from the mic, but no one else has said anything else about that. So I'm assuming that I sounded okay tonight. It's funny. I got this new mic. Everything works. When I play the show back, everything sounds fine. But every once in a while, um, I don't know. While it's live, something happens. But apparently, it's okay. All good now, Joe says.
sounds good.
Vincent shrugs.
Awesome.
Okay, good. Maybe it's
Awesome.
because maybe I did something like this and pulled myself away at some point. I'm trying to be conscious of being close to the mic, so this way
Awesome.
I sound all right.
Ross Niederman, Brandon Kastner, and Patricia Olson correcting us, Joe. Central Park, 5.5 so
Oh,
far.
so only need 4.5. So it's
Right.
possible.
It
It's
is.
possible. Yes, it's possible. It's also possible for a plain yellow pumpkin to become a horse and carriage.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so we'll see. All right, folks, we're going to say goodnight and have a great holiday weekend. And we're going to be back Monday at 7:35 p.m. And don't forget, next Wednesday, with a little luck, Alan Casper will be joining us next Wednesday night. So keep your fingers crossed. And we'll
Nav Weather, on a final note, says you guys are awesome, and we remind him, Joe, of the folks who mentored him in weather for 6 years while he was in the Navy. So I'm kind of amazed that we are looked upon in that way. But thank you so much, Nav Weather, and thank you also to Nav Weather for hitting Super Chat tonight, as well as Ken Musillo, David Schwartz, Jason Kaplan, Johnny Quest, Brandon Doherty, and Bob Paxton. Thank you all for this out of character, out of usual Friday night Joe and Joe show, and we'll again see you on Monday.
99, everybody.